Alright, here we are outside, and as you can see, let me back up a little bit, the foundation is laid. I put them up on these blocks. Some of them required some gravel underneath this level amount. Others did not. I know I probably should have dug down underneath each one of them. On this post here, when I dug down, I ran into some wires and stuff from the park, so I didn't want to cause any trouble there. So I just laid it where it was and did the best I could to get it leveled out from that point. It's probably close to, I'd say, 98% leveled. As you can see, it looks pretty good, and you can see here there's tons of parts left to get this thing assembled. But the base is installed. It's all the way around, firmly attached, screwed in, and now it's just a matter of starting to put the side panels up, get the corners up and done, and everything else is pretty much intact. It's nice and stable. It's nicely firmly installed, and things are going really well. And I'm having a little bit of trouble with the documentation. It rained last night. All my boxes were sitting out here in the rain, and when I got up this morning to start things, the documentation was sopping wet. So I pulled it apart, took some pictures, and then started working on it from there. Now it looks like it's starting to dry out, so I might be able to sit down and read through the documentation a little bit more carefully, make sure I don't miss anything. Anyway, here's where I am, and I'll let you know how it goes from there. Talk to you later. Hey. Here it is, finally finished. Complete foundation, all the walls, floors, everything. 2x6s, ran 16-inch center studs all the way across. Pretty good. Sitting on 6 pillards. Wow, the view on this, really have to get very far back to actually get a full view. But as you can see, looks pretty good. I'll probably stain or something to protect that wood. Make sure I get it done. Everything came out really well. I'm going to look at putting some solar panels on it now. I think I'm going to end up with doing sets of 2. Take these down here, put 2 along this back wall, 2 on the side, 2 on both tops, left, right, both sides, and the back. So that'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 panels. And then I'll probably just leave those 2 over there, so I got all 12 of them out. But either way, wanted to wrap it up, show you that it's all finished. And I'll follow up with it. Another video on mounting solar panels. Back up here and give you a full view. And there's a Starlink. All right. There it is. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Alright, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to start off here with this combiner box to show you I've merged it down to only 3 lines. Let me show you what I did on the outside to change the way this works. So what I noticed is that I was not getting enough solar out of the way I had it set up, which was 2 series and 5 parallel. So what I did is I changed it to 4 in series and 3 in parallel. So what's going on now is these up here, these 4 are series 1, and the 2 in the back and the first 2 on the side are series 2. And then that third one way over here, and these 3 over here are the 3rd string. Now these don't produce very much. This gets hit in the morning, that gets hit in the afternoon. But these other 2 strings, I am already seeing almost a double in the amount of intake I have from the solar. Now, keep in mind also I have a new camera, new microphone. I've never used it before, so I'm trying to keep everything in view here. Not sure how well I'm doing. But as you can see, I did add 2 more panels, so now we're up to 12 panels. But even without the 1 over here and the 3 on the other side, it was already producing about 180% of what it had before. So we are up about 200% now in production. It appears that my original consensus was that the 61, 62 volts I was running was over 5 volts over what it was charging, didn't make a difference. But what I didn't take into account is that's what the MPPT was doing to make it work. There were lots of times when it was under that voltage and it was getting nothing out of it. So as soon as I bumped it up, our increase in solar power was picking up all of that power that we didn't see before, which is fantastic. As you can see today, it's not overly abundant or overly sunny, but even that said, right now we're pulling in 500 watts of power, and it is currently no sun. And even the big panels off the top of the RV that are laying flat are only pulling in 700. So we are really very, very close to good competition with them now. The big one is the voltage, as you can see. Now it's pulling in at 113, 110, somewhere in that range, between 110 and 120 most of the time. And that allows it to fluctuate up and down, whereas before it could not fluctuate, is what I'm assuming what was the problem. Is that because it could not fluctuate, it had to stay at 61 volts. It was showing me 61, but yet it was just eliminating power that it couldn't pick up because the voltage was too low at the time it did it. Now you'll see I did change a little bit of the wiring in here where I brought in that other string, that single panel on the back of this wall, and added it to those 3 that here are all the way around and come in through this wall over here. The series for the 2 on the side, the 2 in the back come in here, and 2 in the side come in here, along with the 4 panels for the top come in here. So the 4 panels on the top come in this line here, and 2 panels come in here, and 2 panels come in the back over there. Now, that said, we then combine them down here, as you can see, and those are pulled into one string, and each one's pulled into one string, and here I double up. Here on this one is where I take the 2 strings and merge them together. Here is where I take the string from the outside, the single panel on this side, and merge it to the other side, and those come up through the floor. So that said, we basically have 3 in series, 4 in series, and 3 in parallel now, running at about 120 volts. And then when it does its massive pull, the highest and lowest I've seen it drop down into is the 90s. But that means before it wasn't able to pull all that power. And you know, when the sun comes out, I have actually seen it well in excess now of 1,000 watts, pushing 1,200, 1,500, or not 1,500, 1,200 watts. As you can see right now, it's over 1,000 with the sun out. And that's with, you know, most of these panels on the side. 6 of these panels are on the side of the shed and not getting full sun. So really the 4 on the top are where most of that power is coming from. Now the interesting thing about this setup is I can now pull off the panels, the 4 sets, and just see what's on the top. So that leaves me with just the panels on the top, and they are 775 of that. And then I can switch this to the panels in the back and on that side, and turn off the top, and you can see that one's only producing 153. And then the panels on that far side, I switch it this way, and we can see those are also producing around 157, 156. So together, these two side ones aren't producing a whole bunch right now, but in the evening, when the panels on the sunset side and the back get hit, this number soars up. During the day, they're only producing about 300, as you can see here, 330 or so, not major. But then you add in those top panels, which are the big producers during the day, and we jump way up over 1,000 watts when the sun is out. So this is really interesting, because that I didn't understand that voltage was going to have such a huge effect on it. And once someone pointed it out that was a possibility, I went and changed these to mount an extra panel over here and an extra panel on this backside, and combined these into 4 series. And Soupy came by and parked his house here. But that said, that's it for the day. I just wanted to give you an update on it. So now we're producing double the power out of this solar shed, and we're running 12 panels again like we did when they were laying on the ground, and we're producing almost the same power that we did when they were laying on the ground. We're at about 1,000 to 1,100 watts here. I did see 1,200 to 1,400 when it was laying on the ground. I don't know if you can hear those planes flying over me. Sorry about that if you can. Like I said, new microphone is much better, and I'll see if I can figure out how to get some noise canceling on it if I need to. Anyway, make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to Mattman Solar. I may have a little bit of an addiction. Today we're going to cover the PV combiner box for the solar shed. Enjoy. Please like and subscribe to the channel. This is my project for this week, actually for last week, and I'm just now getting around to recording. It is a PV converter box. PV converter box is really replacing what I use when I'm in temporary locations, which is something like this. These are a combiner string where it takes 4 and it puts it into 1, or you could even use the 3-in-1. So this takes 3 strings and combines it to 1. You put one on the positive side, you put another one on the negative side, and you use these fuses, or at least I use these fuses, to keep the multiple parallel strings from providing enough amperage if something does go wrong with one string for it just to feed an infinite amount of electricity into it and burn everything out. So these are 15 amp fuses, and they match the panels so that you know how much they can take and where your amperage and all that where your fusing should be, what rating it should be at. But that said, the purpose that I like doing it this way is this is on a permanent fixture outside my RV, and in the park that I'm at. I'll probably be here off and on for the next year as we travel around and do some other things, but this gave me a nice place to keep my washer and dryer and have some extra panels when I'm parked, and have a nice place off the beach to enjoy the scenery. As you can see I'll include a picture here of this morning's sunrise at 7:30. It was beautiful. So basically what I did is I brought in all of the individual lines, and instead of connecting them to the connectors I showed you before, I just looped them all around, and with the extra wire, I even left all the extra wire. So if I had extra wire here, I just left it all here, looped them all around, and plugged them into the 6 inputs that are here. These 6 inputs, and then 1 output comes out here, loops around, and goes off into the charge controller over on the RV, which is a Victron charge controller. And I'll show you a screen of it running also, so that you can see what it looks like. And it runs at 61 volts, which has some. I run two serial, 4 parallel right now, and then the 2 on the roof are actually 2 serial, 2 parallel connecting to one of those. So I've got 4 lines coming in. Technically, there's 5. But I only have 1 line for the ones on the roof, so I'll be updating that soon and getting a new getting the fifth line ran all the way here. But as you can see, each one has its own breaker, which is nice. It allows you to turn off and on the different solar panels, and that allows you to test and make sure that each one of them is working properly, each one of them is feeding the right voltage, each one of them is feeding the right amperage. It also allows for you to replace those inline fuses with these here, and these are interchangeable or replaceable, so if one pops, you can just replace this as opposed to buying those big inline ones, which are a lot more expensive. I also have a lightning arrestor here. I don't know if a real lightning strike comes along, if this is going to really do any good, but I figure it can't hurt. And then I got a breaker here which controls the main output line to the RV, which is nice for shutting things down, working on the panels and stuff like that. Once it gets to the RV, there's an actual PV shutoff, one of the big the normal PV shutoffs. I use that really to turn everything off, make sure it can extinguish the thing. At 61 volts and running 20-25 amps, it's really not a super high risk range. It's not like I'm running at 400 volts and 50 amps or anything like that. So I don't really have a high risk here of that, but I do still play it careful. When I received this box though, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you go through and check all of these connections. So every one of this, it comes completely pre-assembled. The only thing that wasn't here is the wire that I have for the output, which I wired in the output here to come out these, and I put the caps on to make sure that they were nice and tight and everything. And then I just put in C4 connectors down here to make it easy for me to connect to it. But in reality, I could have just ran these wires straight up in there, but because I already had connectors on the ends of these wires, I figured it was easier just to build this little lead here, and that way it could travel with me, and if I needed to disconnect it, I could and move things around. So I did it in that thing. Also, these C4 connectors, each one of them causes more risk with your system, but in this particular case, they're inside, they're out of the weather, and they're a little bit better protected, so I'm hoping that they'll have less issues than the ones that are on the outside. So each one of these I had to check and make sure that they were tight. I did find a couple of them that were a little loose, nothing that probably would have been problematic, but a couple of things that make me sleep better at night when I know that I've checked them all. I mounted this on a nice 3/4 inch piece of plywood that is just screwed to the back of the shed. It was screwed in with the same size screws that the shed does, with the same little rubber seal O-rings that they come with. You put the rubber O-ring on the screw, you put the screw through the aluminum side of the shed, and then that screws into this board here and holds it up. So you can see here, it's mounted to the side, gives me a nice working platform in here to do that, and to run the wall outlets, which coincidentally is where the ground wire comes out of here, runs down, connects directly to the box on the wall outlet. I don't like the plastic ones, I like the metal ones, so I always run my conduit and stuff with the metal ones. Then that is basically runs from the wire that runs from this into the RV and connects to the ground there, and everything runs off of the single ground that comes in from the utilities. Whether I'm here, whether I'm plugged, I'll be plugged in directly either that way or in another way. So there's always the single ground that runs there. Then if I don't have the utilities plugged in, which there are times where I just disconnect everything, then I do the bonding within the 6000 XP and let it do the neutral bonding there. And that way there is just one single location. So everything is pretty straightforward. It is IP65 rated. It does have the rubber seal, as you can see around here. It's pretty thick and foamy. It does seem to seal pretty tight. You do give it a nice push here and fold this thing forward and get the if I can do it one-handed here, get that to latch on there, and then just clip it closed, and it comes with a lock, which is nice. That if it was outside, you'd probably want to make sure you kept it locked and keep people away from playing around on the inside of it. Technically, if they're here to do damage, that part down there isn't going to help you any. They're going to be able to do the damage that they want to do without any problems, but it keeps fingers out of here and away from the high voltage pieces of it. and gives them a good, nice warning sign. So very happy with the purchase at this point. Haven't had any problems with it. Gives me the flexibility of flipping off all the breakers, walking through each of the panel sets, making sure they're running the right voltage, making sure, and if I move something around outside or change some wires, it allows me to test each one of them independently, which was nice, because when you're running on these wires here, the only way to do that is to disconnect them all and one at a time connect them up, which obviously provides some amount of risk involved in playing with DC power like that directly. Those MC4 connectors are designed to be safe, but they're not that safe, especially if you're playing with high voltage. Now, here I'm only running at 61 volts, so not that big of a deal, but it's enough that it's going to hurt. I don't take that risk, especially if you're running the 20 and 30 amps. 30 amps at 60 volts is still going to be very, very painful. Can cause a lot of damage and hurt somebody very seriously. So take the voltage seriously. It's not no big deal. Anyway, combiner box for the solar shed. If you haven't seen the video on the solar shed, it's got 10 250 watt used panels I bought from a solar farm that was shutting down here, or was selling them off. They were parked in the middle of a field. They were old and dirty. I got very lucky. I got 10 perfectly working panels. They are a little older, but they do seem to work. It puts out, from about 5 to 8 kilowatts a day. It's not full production, but I do have, only 4 panels pointing up, and the other 6 panels just on the sides. I have an east-facing set of panels, a west-facing set of panels, and a north-facing set of panels, and they are pure vertical, 90-degree vertical. So it's not there to produce the maximum amount of power. It's there to give me some powers, because it was the only way I could get it approved through the where I'm staying, here at the park. So it does allow me to have it, though, which is nice. So now I have enough power to run just practically everything I want, especially on the non-winter months. The winter months, it doesn't make much difference. I'm usually traveling a lot of the times during those anyway. Going further south, going off onto the beaches and doing things like that. So either way, if you have any questions, please put the comments down below. Be glad to answer them. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the type of content that I do. I do anything that does with solar power, anything it does with RV living and stuff like that. I'll be posting videos out here of all the little projects that I do. So make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Help the channel grow a little bit and make sure that I continue to make more videos. I appreciate your time, and thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. So here is some of the important things that I wanted to go over today. I have a whole bunch of content on the details of how the panel's produced and everything, but I wanted to make sure that I did get a few questions from people asking about the panel layouts and why I did it this way and why I did it that way. So I want to walk you through the panel layout. What you see on the screen now is the shed. The shed faces north direction, as you can see up here. Let's see if I can highlight this. Yep, so as you can see, it faces north up here, and this side faces west. There is a building here that obstructs this view until about 10 o'clock when these panels can light up, and about noon before these panels over here have full sun. Then obviously these are in the south, so for the majority of the time during the winter they're going to have a little bit better view, but in the extreme winter they do have a little bit of shadowing across the bottom down here. Then on the east side, the RV is parked along this area here. But for the most part, until late in the evening, we do have full sun over here once solar noon passes, which around this time of the year is about 1:20 to 1:30 in the afternoon. So let me explain why I did what I did initially, and then I'll walk through each one of them quickly, and then we'll get on to the rest of this video. So this is kind of a full recap of all the panel layouts. The first panel layout I did was this one here, and it was in 2 series, and as you can see, there are 5 parallels. The reason I did this is that I wanted to be able to get all the sun at these at the same time, all of these at the same time, these at the same time, and then separate the east and the west as the sun went from one hemisphere to the other. That is really what I was after. Now, when I noticed that the power, the voltage coming from these panels was over 60 volts, I never gave it a second thought. I didn't review it. I didn't think about it. I'm thinking, okay, it needs to be over 5 volts in order to make it work. But what I didn't think about is that it doesn't give it enough room to really work with it. So what I did next is, after I did this, and that was the first video that you saw, and I'll link it right here right now so that you can go back and watch the first video if you want. Then we went to the next video here, or the next setup. The next setup, I decided I was going to try this in 4 parallel, get the voltage as high as I could get. So I did end up having to add 2 extra panels, as you can see here, a panel here and a panel here. Now, that said, what I originally did is I put 4 panels here and I put 4 panels here, thinking, okay, well, let's just see if this works. It worked extremely well. Obviously, it left these 2 panels sitting over here orphaned, and I thought to myself, well, you know what, if I just add an additional panel, I can put these 4 panels together and get the best results out of it as possible. That is what I did, and that is when I made the video, is after these 4 panels here had been lit up. The idea of these was to check if these 8 would do as well as the original 10. They did. But then I got the idea, maybe I can even do better. So I added 2 more doing it this way. Now, that said, and watching the voltage, when the sun came up in the morning and hit these panels, I noticed that the voltage of the MPPT would change to around 88 volts as opposed to the 118 or 119 that it would get once it went into the full solar day. That brought me to thinking, maybe this panel being over here wasn't, or could help more than I originally thought. Not that these weren't producing quite well, but maybe I could do a format that allowed these to continue to produce the way I wanted them to, but also get these 3 panels into full production somehow for that short period of time between 10 a.m. and noon, which was where I was having the problems. So then I came up with this layout. This layout is what currently this video is made about. This layout talks about, I moved this panel to down here. I swapped them. So when the sun comes up in the morning, it's hitting all 4 of these and these 4 panels, and I get the full effect. And what I'm seeing, the results you'll see later, I go over numbers and statistics and go through all the charts with you and show you the solar home assistant, and it has all the figures and everything. But then in the evening, when the sun starts to go down, these panels have full light also, which didn't affect going from these 2 to these 2. It actually may have made it a little bit better, as this one has a little bit more direct light than this one does. So it may have actually increased the performance of the evening. It certainly extended out the power for longer. But it dramatically increased the morning production also. So the only other item that I have really in my list to try, and this was really thought up of while I was doing the other video, while I was creating this video, would be a 4th layout, which has not been done. I haven't even decided if I want to do it. I am curious of what you think about it, if it's even worth the effort. And I highlight in the video why I'm reluctant to do it, because of the cable moving around and the way the panels are attached and everything. So I may do it anyway just to see. This last setup was kind of an idea that I had while I was recording this video, was to put 3 in series from the east and the west, 3 from the top, and 2 from the south and 1 from the top, to see if 3 series 4 parallel as opposed to the 4 series 3 parallel is better. I have a lot of thoughts of maybe this would help, maybe it wouldn't. I'm not sure that it's going to change a whole lot. I do know that it will be a dramatic change on the way the panels are set up and the way they're laid out, and what I would have to disconnect panels and I would have to move things around. So I don't know that I will actually do it, but I find myself saying I don't know if I'm going to actually do it and then end up doing it sometimes anyway. So this is theoretical. It may not ever happen. So the rest of the video has details on the 3rd version of 4 parallel, 3 series, with the west, the east separated as opposed to the random panel separate of this first group that we had up here. Hope you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe, and enjoy the rest.
All right, so now we're recording another video on this. We did this the other day, and I switched this from going from 2 in series, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in parallel, to being 4 in series and going 3 in parallel, and I added 2 panels. Now let me explain a little bit about why I did this. So when I originally hooked it up, I was under the impression that if I got these 2 panels on the top together and the 2 on the other side together and the 2 over here and the 2 back here and the 2 on the back side over there, that those 2 panels together would have sun at the same time and thus create the most power. Now, what I since learned is that because the voltage was right at the edge of where it needed to be, it was running at 61 volts, the MPPT couldn't adjust the voltage to pull out more watts. So I was losing a lot in that conversion. So what I did is I switched it to a 444. I put these 2 panels over here together with these 2 panels. I put the 4 panels on the roof together, and I took that last panel on that row there and added it to these 3 over here. Now, this made a huge difference. It created a whole lot more power, as you've seen in that video. If you haven't seen that video, then I suggest I'll link it up here in the top somewhere so that you can take a look at it. But now what I'm going to do is I changed it again 2 days ago. And what I did is I took these 4 panels, 1, 2, 3, 4, knowing that when the sun comes up in the morning, comes up over the edge of this building here, it hits these 4 panels and those 4 on the top, and it goes boom and lights up like a Christmas tree. I get tons of power all at the same time. It jumps up in the around 900 to 1,000 watts. Now, is that perfect? No. These 250 watt panels are very old. They're very used. They're not pulling 250 watts. My suspicion is they're pulling about 60 to 70% of that, even in perfect sunlight. Now, I take and I'll include a picture of where I had these laying out on the ground, and they were only creating 1,400 watts then also, even with full sun hitting them. So that's what gives me that impression that they're not really being able to pull that much power. So on this side, I then created this 1 panel with these 3. Now, once that sun comes up, as you can see, we're in that part of the day right now where there really isn't any sun hitting these panels. We have a lot of shading across the top here, and it really hasn't gotten much down into the bottom. It'll start to fill those up with sun. These stay sunny all day. And this one is starting to retract from it. So it's pulling away from this and it's going. Now what's happening, what's really unique about this, is there is a really small dip in production when it switches from this side to that side, because as this side gets weaker, this side gets stronger. And that is kind of balancing it out. There is a small dip in there, and hopefully I can include some statistics and show you that here on the screen. The 4 panels up on the top, they're pretty consistent. But the one thing that I noticed from before, that the largest problem that we were having here isn't that I had 4 panels that didn't have direct light, is that in order to get the right amount of wattage out of these, it needed the voltage to be able to keep the voltage as high as possible. So what was happening before, when it had this 1 panel and the 3 on the other side, is in the morning, it would downgrade, the MPPT would downgrade the voltage to around 81, 82 volts. And then as the day went on, as the sun got closer to here in the middle, then it would bump it up into the 110 range. And then when it got to the full sun over here as it's going down, and these 2 and those 2 were both lit up and the roof was lit up, then it would run at the 120. What I'm seeing now is with 2 of the 3 series sets of panels always producing power, or almost always, that we have a little bit of a lull in the afternoon, like right now when the sun is really right here in the middle. It's not lighting up these, and it's not lighting up the ones in the back. And it runs down in the high 90s, low hundreds, but it's still pulling 800, 900 watts because it's getting good balance from both sides of these panels, which was what we saw before in the middle of the day. When everything was kind of lit up, it was doing okay. But now, once this sun passes this point, on the back side of this, before it gets here, it's running at 12, 1300. And once it passes that point, it's running at 12 or 1300. So you see a huge spike in the morning when it goes up over the building, and then it drops down just a tiny bit in noon, as 1:30 or so in the afternoon where we're at now. And then it goes back up over on this side and runs all the way till sundown. Now, sundown is getting very difficult for me to prove because right now we're getting so much solar and the sun is out so much that I'm having a hard time even burning the batteries down far enough to keep it lit all day. Yesterday I had two of my heat pumps running on full AC with the windows open, just to try to keep the solar running all day so I could prove what was going on here. It is absolutely true now that those two. Now, I do have one more test I'm thinking about running. And if you've got any suggestions, please suggest it in the thing. I'm thinking about running a series of 3. So run these 3 from the top, 2 of these plus 1 from the top, and then these 3 over here. Now, the voltage, instead of being where it was originally down in the low 60s, and instead of being where it is now in the 120s to 130s, 130 before you pull anything from it, open line, and then 118, 119 when it is pulling, it would drop down to around 100 when it's pulling and 102, 103 when it's not pulling. I think there's enough room in there to possibly even get a better performance, because what would happen is the one panel that I lose here in the early evening, that's paired with the 3 on the back side, and the one panel in the morning that I lose, it's paired with the 3 on this side, I would gain, because all of these 2 plus 1 on the roof would always be lit. The 3 on the roof would always be lit, and the 3 on the side of whatever morning or afternoon I happen to have. That's the theory anyway. Now, I haven't tried that. Now, the only problem I have with that is every time I do this, I'm causing problems like this, where I have the cables being moved around. I have things not bolted on correctly because I have to unbolt them to get to them. I have wires sticking out all over the place. I've had to add panels, those extra ones down there. We had a lot of wind last night, so I had to go in and put some, strap some of those down and put some screws in them just to hold them on so they wouldn't blow down in the middle of the night. And so that's kind of a little bit worrisome. I even had to extend the wood blocks at the bottom. I did have a question about this. So a lot of the weights is sitting on this bottom piece down here. This 2x4 runs across both supports down at the bottom. And so there is no weight on the shed other than it leaning against it, with the exception of the panels on the roof. Now, the panels on the roof, these primary connectors here are screwed into the primary studs of the frame inside. And the top is not, it's just screwed in and just held up there. But the weight support for this shed is in excess of 400 pounds for snow weight. Now, the panels themselves weigh about 40 pounds, which means I have 160 pounds of panels sitting on the roof, of which most is sitting on the support beam. And I don't think it's an issue. I am in Florida. I have no snow. I have hurricanes and a lot of wind. So that's my only real concern, is when a hurricane comes, how confident am I that the shed would even be here, let alone the panels themselves. So that's something I'm going to have to think about and deal with. But just wanted to let everyone know, this is the idea now. I know this is producing more. We're up again another 2 to 4K in production. And if I can get the batteries ran down enough, I thought I was going to have a shady day today. As it turns out, my batteries peaked out early. We're sitting at 100% right now.
So that said, here is, I'm going to go in and get on the laptop and see if I can give you guys some statistics and show you what I'm seeing. And we will overlap that with some of this and hopefully get a couple questions from you guys. And I'll be glad to try some other things that we've got. But I'm not sure about the 3 panels, if that will work. And I'm not sure really that with it being 4 right now and 4 here, that the alternating this 1 extra panel is going to make much of a difference. I'm not sure it's worth all the extra effort. What I might do is trim down the top to be 3 panels and the 2 sides to be 3 panels and just see how much difference, how much they actually generate, to see if it's even going to be closely competitive to what I already have. I'm not sure that it will be, but you know, I've made some assumptions before, and these panels seem to amaze me each time. And like I said, these are not new panels. These are old panels. They're very old, and they're 250 watt. I think they're Canadian solar panels, and they're 250 watts, but they are not producing at 250 watts. I'll throw some statistics in here and show you kind of what they're producing. I would suspect that it's about 60% would be maximum straight on full power if they were sitting direct sun and stringed together correctly. And I know this is not strung together correctly. This is an experiment of how do you get more space when you don't have any space? How do you get more panels when you don't have any room for? How do you get more panels when you're not allowed to have anything that isn't mounted to your RV or to your shed? And that is the case with me right now. So please like and subscribe. We'll follow this up. When I get inside, I get the computer out, and we'll see if we can do some statistics and answer some more of your questions there. I appreciate you a lot. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. All right. We're going to run a little fun test here and take a look at, back on the 25th, the solar setup was 2S 5P, meaning there was 2 panels in series and 5 paralleled, done like that. There was the 2 in the back of the shed, the 2 on the west side of the shed, the 2 on the east side of the shed, and the west side, 2 on the top on the west side and 2 on the top on the east side. That produced this chart here, as you can see, pulling in power each day around 600 in the morning. It would dip off in the afternoon as it switched from the 2 series on the left, 2 series on the east to the 2 series on the west. And it would struggle when it had low power in any particular space because the voltage was running at about 30.5 volts per panel. Now, if you put 30.5 volts per panel, it's 61 volts if it runs at full power. And this is where the problem comes in. These are older panels. They're not performing great, but when it starts to pull that power, it could only get a little bit of power because it's charging a 48 volt battery, which means it was sitting at 54, 55 volts. It had very little room for the MPPT to point out the right power spot for it to extract power. It needed a little bit of room to do it. You can also see the afternoon, and this will be significant later when we look at this. The afternoon, after the sun started going down, really just kind of dwindled away to almost nothing. Surprisingly, though, in this area here, the sun was really, really shining in these panels. And so what was hurting, I think, in the morning and in the afternoon is the multiple low voltage 2 series. And I don't know that for sure, but it sure seems like it was unable to recover from that power loss when those weren't able to pull the power that it needs. Now, that said, we're going to move here to the 26th. And on the 26th, I basically changed the panels
to be 4 in series and 3 paralleled. Now, that said, you got to remember, in order to do such, you have to add some panels, because that went from 10 panels to 12 panels. So you'll notice that here, this is the 4 series only for the 4 on the top, and the 2 in the back, and 2 on the west side. I did not have the other 4 panels installed until this area down here. So after I installed them down here, we will see on the next morning really the recovery there. But as you can see, it was blatantly obvious, which is why I went ahead and over here installed some additional panels. It was blatantly obvious, and this is where I made the other video, that this was much better. It was performing much, much better already. We were at 900 here. It was maintaining all day. When the sun started to go down, I could see clearly that I was going to have no problems whatsoever with the panels. You can see here I unplugged one string of them, did some work on it, shut the whole thing down, and then brought it back up with all of the panels installed here. So, but you can see here our peak is up in the, why does it do that? There we go. Our peak is, you know, around 1,050, 1,061. Our middle of the afternoon is 827, and really pretty much the morning never really got off to anything above 930 or so. Not bad, tremendously better than it had been before, without a question. There was no debate that it was tremendously better. So I let this ride, and we went into the next morning, and as you can see here, wait for this to reload. The next morning, everything came up as it should. It immediately, as it hit before the sun even came over. Now, keep in mind, the sun comes over the top of the building right here at about 10, 11, or 12 o'clock. When it did that, it lit this thing up like a Christmas tree. It basically took off like mad. Now, keep in mind, one panel on this side is still on the west side of the shed. So you have one panel on the west side, you have 3 panels on the east side. So you really never saw this go to a full power like you would see over here, where you have 4 panels getting direct sunlight on the top, and 4 panels 2 in the back and 2 on the west side. So over here you have 1 west side and 3 east side. So that's really where you see this stubbornness until around noon, when all of a sudden both sides of the panels start to get a fair amount of light. The top ones are performing really well, and then as that sun shifts in the afternoon and starts hitting those panels on the west side and the back side, this starts to skyrocket and brings us up into the higher elevations of PV collection, way up here in this. Wish I could get rid of the stupid way that thing displays stuff. That is very annoying. But it's way up there in the 1100, around 1100 range. 1107, there we go. So much better, but still not consistently up in the 1,000, 1,200 range, except for this short window in the early afternoon when it was hitting. This got me to thinking, how can I get 4 panels, other than the 4 on the top, to get sun for longer periods of time than just this small window here? Could I get some panels in the morning to get the sun, and some panels in the night? So what I decided to do was to switch the 4 panels, the 2 sets of 4 panels, the 2 parallel sets of 4 on the side, to being 3 on the west, 3 on the east, and both of them getting 1 on the north side, or on the south side. This would cause, I was hoping this would cause, as soon as it came up over that morning, sun came up over the buildings around 10 o'clock, that there would be a spike on this side, and then it would continue on this side. Now, I wasn't sure that was what was going to happen, but you can see from this clearly this is exactly what happened at 10 o'clock in the morning. It shot straight up. Now, we had a lot of clouds this day, but you can also see these spikes are considerably higher. This was a very well producing day. And then when it settled down, that said, it was still in the 900s. So it produced up, 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 up after 10 o'clock, and it ran all the way up to a peak here pretty consistently into the 1200s. Now, it maintained over 1,000 all the way through the switchover of the afternoon, back to the other panels, and all the way back to about 4:30, 5 o'clock. That is a long time where we were able to get from the morning panels to take over to start producing power, the sun in the middle to get a little bit from both sides, and then the sun on the west side to take over completely. There was absolutely no question this was the right way to do it. Now, that said, we carry that into today, and we look at what we have here today, and you're going to see that I ran out batteries just plain blank full today. Yesterday was a bumper day. There was no way for me to even come close to competing with that. The cloud cover was horrible today, but even that said, if you look at what was going on in this morning out here, there is no question that this was building all day, even in cloudy situations, and we really didn't start getting sun until this afternoon. So this day really doesn't count. But what's important here is to show that there was still a continued growth above 900 from 11 o'clock or so on. And you can see here, this is all cloud cover. I mean, cloud cover was terrible today. So for this to still be here and us to get full batteries when we got here, this is when the clouds started to move out. And when they started to move out, they pulled out all the things, and then boom, we hit full batteries, and nothing really happens. These spikes are nothing more than me making a coffee, or the hot water heater running, or something that allowed it to produce a bunch of power. But you can see clearly this power even at 3 in the afternoon is 1,300, 1,400 in the afternoon. So there is no question that what we saw on the 28th is going to be a fairly consistent performance. It's going to start early in the morning, right after the 10 o'clock thing. It'll start to build. It'll crescendo up into the over 1,000 by 11 o'clock or so, and it's going to hold that until well into the afternoon at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So that is, the conclusion is that definitely works. Now, the question is, and here's where I'm debating whether I even want to go to this extent to do this, is would I be better off, instead of doing 4 in series and 3 in parallel, to go 3 in series and 4 parallel? And the way I would do that is do 3 on the west side, 3 on the east side, 3 from the roof, and 2 from the back or the south side, and 1 from the roof to make the 4th parallel set in those things. I don't know that we were going to get much better performance than we've got here, but I have to say some of the results that I've got here make sense while we're getting them, but yet they still surprise me how dramatic they are. Just how massive of a difference this made from the one we had before, of moving a simple panel from one side of the shed to the other. We were able to create almost 3 extra kilowatts a day. So that said, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for everything that you do. Please provide any feedback down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what I missed. Let me know what mistakes I made. Let me know how I can make it better. Keep in mind, this is not about getting the most performance out of these panels as I can. Laying them at a perfect angle, perfectly in the right direction, perfectly all that. Anybody can do that. This is about, I only am allowed to mount these panels either on my RV, which I already have 370 watt, 10 370 watt panels on my RV, or on my fixed shed. So I don't have the flexibility of putting in things to pop them up in the air, or to make them angled, or lay them on the ground, or change the way the arrangement is. The 12 panels that I have pretty much is all the 12 that'll fit, and it's the only way I can do it. Now the question becomes, what is the best way to arrange them to get the most power? Keep in mind also, summer is approaching here. We're getting a lot of power in the morning and a lot of power at night, and I don't have a whole lot of trees around here, but the buildings do play part of that. In the winter, there are some buildings to the south that cause those south panels to act up. So I may find that the 3-panel solution works better in the winter than it does in the summer, and it may be worth doing for that purpose only. But there's only one way to know, and that's to wait for the next winter and try it then, if I'm even still here and in this location. For that, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Love to see you back. Love to hear your comments, and talk to you on the next video.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're going to look at the difference between the MPPT, which is the maximum power point tracking, and PWM, pulse width modulation. I'm going to explain to you what the differences between them are, why it matters to you, which ones will work best for you, and this could save you a ton of solar energy if you get the right one. All right, let's get right to it. Let's look at what they actually are. So they are exactly as their names describe. The maximum power point tracking, which is the MPPT, is exactly that. It is tracking of the power when you have your power coming in from your solar panels as the sun goes up and down. It is tracking the maximum point that it can pull at any given time during this day, and it's pulling out the maximum amount of energy, taking that, converting it down, and sending it into your batteries. Whereas PWM, this pulse, the pulse width modulation, is doing exactly the opposite. It's taking this power as it comes in, and it's basically trimming it down to whatever voltage it needs to pass it into your battery, cutting out that upper thing. There are benefits to both. There are downsides to both. So we're going to break into those ups and downs and see if we can figure out some of this. There's a lot of confusion between the two of these in that they are the same or that they both work. There's even companies out there selling PWM on Amazon that I have seen where the name of the company is very similar to these 4 letters. This is simply just not acceptable, but it's causing so much confusion in the market simply because people don't understand the difference. So let me explain the difference to you, and then you'll be able to identify them and get the right one for your case scenario. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with MPPT. The MPPT is the maximum power point tracking. So let's assume that you have a 42 volt solar panel and you have a 12 volt battery. Solar panel. Now, that means that when you have a 42 volt, I'm going to put some voltage up here. When you have a 42 volt panel like this, you're basically going to see the power fluctuate across this grid as the day goes by. And what you will see is as this power moves from one to another, like this, as the sun goes down, the sun comes back up, gets really bright, stays there for a while, and then comes back down, you're going to see that what the MPPT is going to do is at any given time in this cycle, for example, if it takes a snapshot here, it's going to pull this voltage at 41 volts, and it's going to take the number of amps, and let's say that there's 10 amps coming in. 10 amps at 41 or 40.1 volts, so if it's 40.1 volts, would convert that into 10 amps would be 401 watts. Now,
this 401 watts would then be converted down to 12 volts, and 12 volts at that same, sorry, I stepped away and get a calculator for this one. So 12 volts at that same 401 watts is what it's going to do, is it's going to convert it down from this 40.1 volts, and it's going to convert it down to 12 volts. And when it does such, that would basically convert into 401 divided by 12 volts, and you would get 33.4 amps at 12 volts. So this becomes it does a conversion from 40.1 volts at 401, at 10 amps, whoops, put that in the right thing, to 12 volts at 33.4. It's the same amount of wattage. It's just the controller is smart enough to sense where that maximum point of power is, and it tracks it as this goes up and down. So as the sun goes up and it gets into 42 volts here, so now you're at 42 volts, and let's say that you're running at the same 10 amps, now you're getting 420 watts, and the 420 watts at 12 volts, 420 at 12 volts would get converted to 35 amps, and that would go out to your batteries at 12 volts. So it is just a very smart piece of software that tracks this maximum power that it can extract. Now, it's a bit more complicated than this. And what I mean by that is that in order for it to know where this maximum is, you'll notice on a solar panel, there's two voltages. There's the open circuit voltage. So let's just say open circuit, and it may say something like 47. And then there's the operating voltage, and it may say something like we do here, where we said it was going to be 42 volts. Now what that means is that somewhere between here and here, when the MPPT goes to pull that voltage from it, it's going to pull down as much as it can to get the maximum amount of wattage that it can. Now it may be able to get different wattages at different points. So for example, it may be very easy for it to pull down here at 38 volts and get, let's say, 210 watts. And here at 39 volts, it may get 310 watts. And here at 39.8 or 39.8, it may get 400 watts. But what would happen is when it picks that perfect amount, and in this case it's 401, this is where it's going to actually pull that from, and it has to be smart enough to adjust for that each and every time. So as you can see, the software in an MPPT is much more complicated than just going in, grabbing the solar, converting it to the battery, and sending it on. It's got to be smart enough to find the right point that it is, and you can actually see this on a Victron charge controller, where it pings between the least amount of voltage that it can send to the battery and the highest amount of voltage that it can send to the battery, and determines where it's going to actually make that point for this particular instance, and it'll adjust that accordingly as it goes along as it needs to. So this software has to be smart enough to, one, go in and find the right voltage to get the maximum amount of wattage, and then two, it has to be able to convert that wattage, to downstep that wattage into the correct voltage for the battery's charging, depending on what kind of battery you have. And if that is like a lithium iron phosphate battery, then of course you're going to want that at a different rate than you would in a lead acid. So you'll need to adjust that. But it'll adjust that to exactly the correct amount to be able to push the maximum amount it can into that battery at that point, or to supply the maximum it can to the devices that are using it and reading from it. That is how MPPT works. Now, so we take PWM, pulse width modulation, and explain how this works. And technically, it is exactly as it says. It is, and we'll start off very slow here, because what's going to basically say is, let's say that we have a battery that is sitting at 12 volts, and you have solar panels that are sitting at 14 volts. Now, those solar panels are obviously going to have different voltages, whether that be 12 volts, 13 volts, or 14 volts, or anywhere in between. And they're going to, just like before, the sun is going to come up and the sun is going to go down, and you're going to have a variance in this voltage as the sun moves. Now, as the sun moves, what the pulse width modulation does is it cuts this off at every point in this bracket to 12 volts for the 12 volt battery. And it will basically cut off the top. Now you ask, how does it cut off the top? And I'm going to explain it to you. The PWM, pulse width modulation, means exactly that. So if you broke this power down into hundreds of milliseconds, and you had second 1 here and second 2 here, this power runs across like this, creating that voltage at, let's say, 13 volts. And what you want to do is you want to get it down to 12 volts. So your goal voltage here is this 12 volt line. So what it does is that in little micro pulses, it cuts the voltage off like this. And so your electricity in your power in here actually dips to 0 and then comes back up, and then dips to 0 and comes back up, and dips to 0 and comes back up. Just like this. Now, keeping in mind, this is 1 second, and this is doing it thousands, if not millions of times in a second in order to regulate that voltage and thus bring you down to 12 volts, or what would be perceived as 12 volts by the device. Now, as you can see, the big difference here is, and this is where you will hear that this is not as efficient as the MPPT. It's also not as expensive. They're easier to make, and they operate really well when you have solar panels that are very, very close to the voltage of what you want to charge, because a PWM charger is very inexpensive. But you're going to have to be very close, because what's going to happen is it's just going to trim this power off. So let's say you have power coming in at 13. Let's do it with a different color here. You have power coming in at 13 volts, and you want to trim it to 12, and you have 10 amps at 13 volts. That means that you have 130 watts of power coming in. But because you're going to do this modulation of the power and bring it down to 12, that means that you're going to trim off this and make this 10 amps at 12 volts, and you're only going to end up with 120 watts. So there will be a loss of 10 watts here in this modulation of this power as it does it. Now, if your panels are actually putting out, so let's say 10 amps at 18 volts, and you're getting 180 watts, if you were to put that into an MPPT, you would get 180 watts. But because you're running on a PWM, you've got 10 amps at 12 volts, and you're going to get 120 watts. Keeping in mind that this 120 and this 120 are the same. In other words, you need to be at this voltage or above, but anything above is wasted. So putting your panels in series and in upping the voltage is not going to do you the benefits that it would with an MPPT. With an MPPT, you'd put them in series, you bring that voltage up, you make the losses less, and then you bring that voltage down and you convert it as opposed to trim it. That's the basic difference between the two. The PWM is going to trim that voltage off Thus, you have the power loss of what they're producing. The MPPT is going to take that voltage and convert it, but it is much more complicated and expensive to do that. And it allows you, the electronics and the software involved in doing so is a lot more complicated, and that's why the devices cost so much more. Talk about use cases of the MPPT versus the PWM. The MPPT is on any large system where you need the parallel panels to get it up, to get the power up in order to transfer it. It would be very unpractical in a PWM system if you were running, let's say, 12-volt system or a 24-volt system, to go out and find a whole bunch of panels that exactly fit that voltage to where you could parallel them. So let's talk about it. Down here, you might have a 12-volt system where you're just running a couple of little lights. You're in a van. You've got a couple of 100-watt panels on the roof. They both run at 12 volts. You would run them in parallel, and that would get you to at 100 watts. That would get you, your 200 watts, or just barely right at 200 watts if it had to trim it down a little bit. This is a very good use case for PWM. In the case of a large system where you're going to run a house, where you may have 31 panels at, let's say, 400 watts. And when you have 31 panels at 400 watts, you've got, wow, that is what, 12,400 watts of power. What you're not going to want to do is you're not going to want to parallel these out, because the amperage from this, even if each of these panels was running at 10 amps, would be 300. Wow, it would be a lot. It would be 310 amps of power coming in if you had these paralleled like you would over here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run these in series, most likely series of 10 or 15 at a time. Even 10 at a time, you would get 3 strings of 10. You would have much reduced thing. They would run at about 4,000 watts a piece. 4,000 watts a piece would be very, very easy for you to manage on 3 different strings coming in, and that would allow you, the MPPT, to adjust that down to the correct battery voltage or run it directly into an inverter and send it back to the grid. So these are basically the 2 use cases. Somewhere in this line, this gray line here, is where you need to figure out where your system falls. Do you need to switch from the very inexpensive PWM to the more expensive MPPT? Here is my advice. Always go with the MPPT if you can. There is only one really good use case that I know of for a PWM. This is a very small system where you're running a 12-volt system. You have panels that are matched very well, and you're very, very cost restricted, and you need a very super cheap charger. That would be the only real use case that I can see. This technology is pretty much seen its day, and everything is going to MPPT, especially with the cost of products going down. You can get a very good MPP Victron, nice, great charge controller now for $60 or $70 that will do pretty much anything that these will do. And that is the conclusion here, is that the key difference is the bigger systems, the better management, the better software, usually the Bluetooth devices that connect to them that manage them better, the direct conversion of the power, the more efficient, but the slightly more expensive, versus the very simplistic, very difficult in larger systems to configure correctly, very restrictive on how you set up the panels, and very limited in what they're capable of doing for the PWM. Not that this can't be done. It was done for years before the MPPT came out. It just was much more complicated and more difficult to do. That said, I hope this has been helpful to you. I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel, and like this video, subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in this type of stuff, I would encourage you to take a look at this video right here. It's got some great stuff on building a basic solar system, and it's very, very easy. It's only 5 minutes. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Let me show you how to solve some problems like high voltage or low voltage or shading of some of your panels. We will go through all four types of the solar panel configurations to get the perfect one to solve your problems and to get your solar system running at peak performance. Don't forget, you can rewind at any time or click the chapter links in the description below. All right, let's get started. We're going to start with explaining a single panel. Every solar panel has a voltage and a wattage and an amperage. You'll find this on the labels on the back of the panels. So if you take one of these panels and you flip it around, on the very back there's going to be a panel. If you're purchasing it online, then you can look up the spec sheet and you can find this information. It's very important that you use this information in order to determine how big the panels are so that you know exactly what you're calculating and make sure it'll fit in your charge controllers. So let's start with a single panel, and we'll walk through each of the steps and each of the configurations so that you get an idea of how to configure each one of them. So the first one would be with this type of a panel. If you ran this down to your charge controller, it would run down with just a wire straight off of the positive and a wire straight off of the negative. You are going to have a 12-volt system, and it's going to be providing 10 amps, and that is going to be 120 watts at max. Keep in mind, these are all max readings off of the solar panel specs. So, all right. So next, let's talk about parallel. And when we talk about parallel, we're talking about two of them running together. So what would happen here is that you would have both of your positives run down into the charge controller, and both of your negatives run down into the charge controller. Now, these will form together at the very end and connect, and they will in turn, when you run things in parallel, the voltage stays the same. This is like connecting two parallel batteries or having two streets. The voltage or the speed, whichever one's going, stays the same. So in this case, you still have a 12-volt connection, but what has changed is now the amperage. You have 10 being provided from this one and 10 being provided from this one, so your amperage is where you're going to see the change here, and it is going to be 20 amps. And of course, because you have 12 volts times 20 amps, which is 10 times 20, you're going to have 240 watts. As you can see, it is exactly double of this one because you have two panels running down the same street, going at the same speed, 12 volts. Everything works out to be just fine, and you have 240 volts. Now, let's talk about the next case scenario, which is a series panel. And series, as the name implies, we're going to put these, instead of having these panels travel together down a parallel path, we are going to put these panels and connect them in series like this and have a single cable come down. And what this is going to generate is quite different than what you have with parallel. Within parallel, all the voltages stayed the same and the amperage doubled. In this case, what happens is the voltage is now added together, just like it would be if you take two batteries and you connect them in parallel. You take two 12-volt batteries, you end up with a 24-volt battery. You put two batteries in parallel, you end up with a 12-volt battery that's twice the size. Same thing's true here. So you end up with 24 volts, but it remains at 10 amps. And the reason it remains at 10 amps is because now the panels are in series as opposed to parallel. So 24 volts at 10 amps, which is 24 times 10, leads us back to 240 watts. So once you have these three techniques in mind, let's make a third scenario where we combine the two. Let's start off by connecting these two panels in series, and then let's connect these two series in parallel, and what you end up with here is as you would guess, let's walk this through one at a time. This series here is going to produce the same as this, 24 volts, 10 amps, and 240 watts. This series is going to produce exactly the same thing, 24 volts, 10 amps, 240 watts. But then they're going to be paralleled. So what we're going to do is on the parallel side, the voltage stays the same. So we know the voltage is going to come down here to 24 volts. I'm going to put that in the middle. Going to come down here to 24 volts, and then we know that we have them in parallel, which means the amperage is also going to go to 20. So now you have 24 volts at 20 amps, which brings us to a grand total of 480 watts. And as you can see, this can easily be adapted to. Now let's talk about naming, because this is something that is very common, and it's important that you understand how these are named. If you have two panels in parallel, this can be depicted by writing it like this. You have 2P. If you have two panels in series, then this can be depicted as writing 2S. And then finally, when you combine them, you would combine them in the way that they're listed. In this case, first we are seriesing two sets. So we're going to say 2 in series, but there's also 2 in parallel. And this will tell them if I have 12 volt panels at 10 amps going 2 series 2P, exactly how you want them hooked up. And you can use combinations of this to come up with practically any setup for any charge controller on the market today. Now that we understand how to parallel panels, how to series panels, and how to put series panels in parallel, follow me along in the next two use cases where I show you how my RV is configured and where my coffee trailer is configured, and put this to practical use. All right, let's get started on the use cases. In the use cases, we need to start off with some information about the solar panels themselves. And in this case, I wanted to highlight the panels that we're going to be looking at today are based on this current information here. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring up a big screen of this and a picture or from the stat page so that you can see them there. In the stat page, you'll notice under electrical specifications, these are 370 watt panels where the open current voltage is 41.4. The open current voltage means that you take a meter and you put it to the panel, and that's the voltage that it should have when you have power coming out of that panel in good sunlight. And this is what you're going to want to use when you're doing the calculations for what kind of charge controller you need and what the maximum power output could be. The next two important columns that you'll see, and I put them up here on the board for reference, is the rated voltage and the rated current. The rated voltage multiplied by the rated current should give you just under the 370 watts, which is where they come up with the 370 watt panels. We will be using the open circuit voltage so that we make sure we have the right sizes for the charge controllers that we're building today and understand which charge controllers we need. And we are also going to be using the current from the rated current. Let's get back to the use cases now that we understand the type of panels, and what I've written up here is a couple of these panels. So when I built the RV, I had a couple of panels left over. And with these leftover panels, I knew I wanted to build out the coffee trailer, and I intentionally ordered a few extra. I was hoping I'd be able to get all 12 of them on here, and I had to find some extra panels for that. I couldn't. I could only fit 10. So what I did is I took these two extra panels and said, let's build a small system for the coffee trailer to run refrigerators overnight. The solar system that I devise here runs all of the refrigeration overnight, and then the next morning when the power comes back on, everything goes back to normal. The batteries charge off of these two solar panels, which are placed on the roof. So what I needed to know is what type of battery did I need and what type of charge controller did I need. I am going to run two refrigerators and have them both kick on at one time.
So I started off by measuring the surge, and the surge in each one of them ended up being about 1,000 watts. That meant if I wanted to run both of them, I needed 2,000 watts of surge capacity. So I've got a 2,000 watt inverter with a 3,000 watt surge capacity. This allows me to ensure that both refrigeration units can kick on at the same time. That said, I made the decision to go with a 24 volt system. Now, in order to do 740 total watts divided by 24 volts, I need to build a charge at 30 amps. I chose a Victron 30 amp charger, 100/30, which gives you a 30 amp charger at 100 volts, which worked out really well because what I needed is to either A, run these in parallel like we talked before, or run these in series. Now, there's an important factor here that the higher the voltage, the less voltage loss you have. So what you want to do is you want to run these at the highest optimum voltage that you can get. What I chose to do is to run these two in series, and when I did that, what I end up with a system that is running on 82.8 volts and 10.72 amps. This was a perfect fit for the system that I was designing here and allowed me to easily get both panels up on the roof, have all the efficiencies of having them in series and bringing the voltage up. Use case 2 was a little bit more complicated. I had two, this runs on a 6000 XP. The 6000 XP has two inputs that can support up to 4,000 watts each. Now, the maximum voltage, and I'm going to bring the stat sheet up on the screen so that you can see that. And I'm going to, if I remember correctly, it is around 420 volts. Optimum operating is somewhere around 360 or 380, somewhere in that area. And minimum is 120. Originally, I hooked this up with all 10 panels in parallel or in series. What I learned is that on the RV, where I have the 10 panels, and you'll see a picture of that now, this had different shading from this. If I park in an RV park, a lot of the times the front of the unit would have shade when the back of the unit didn't, or the back of the unit would have shade when it didn't. This is a 42-foot RV, and therefore with that 42-foot RV, you run into issues of you're going to have shading in certain aspects. So what I chose to do is to divide this into two sections and to create two series of panels. Now, this series of panels was basically taking the 41.4 maximum volts and creating a 207 volt max, and then it was having a rated operating voltage of 34.5 and creating a 172 volt operating voltage, meaning it was over the 120, but it wasn't going to easily be brought down below the 120 when it tried to pull power from it. So then I created a second string, and I did exactly the same thing. This string, I put these in series, and it created the same stats as up here. It was basically 370 times 5. Each one had 1,850 watts. It had a maximum voltage of 207, an operating voltage of 172, which matched perfectly to this over here. And it allowed for it to fit right in between the minimum operating voltage of 120 and the high operating voltage of 220. And it was below the optimal, but it still was well within its operating range. Then I ran each one of these to the charge controller, an independent line within the charge controller. This allowed me a very important thing, which you'll see on the screen right now, for me to track the statistics differently with each of these two sets of panels.
I could have paralleled these two strings together and put them into a single input if I had other inputs that were needed to go through the second line. But because I didn't, it allowed me to simply take these two strings, split them into two sets of series, and run them into two different inputs on the 6000 XP. But like I said, they could have been paralleled, and that would have allowed all of the 3,700 watts to come through a single input. So in the EG4 app, in my Solar Assistant, and in my Home Assistant, I feed this data all the way through, and it gave me the ability to see which areas were shaded, which ones were not shaded, and to make adjustments if needed, depending on where I was parking and how I was parking. So that is the RV. That is the second use case that we have in the RV. It allows you to create two series of panels of 5 each, running at 207 volts, operating at 172 volts, and outputting 1,850 watts apiece for a total of 3,700 watts with both inputs active. Then we have the coffee trailer, and the coffee trailer is running a 2,000 watt inverter. It has two panels on the top, charging a 24 volt system at a maximum of 30 amps with a Victron 100/30 charge controller. Both of these use cases are very, very real life ideas. This could be a small van. This could be a house, and both of them are very useful and should provide you with the basics of understanding how to serial or parallel or in conjunction use the parallel serial variations that we went over. I hope this helps, and I hope you've learned something, and I hope to see you on the next video. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks for watching. And now we have a video about which battery you should use, a 12 volt, a 24 volt, or a 48 volt. Click this link right up here on the screen. It'll take you to that video so you can decide which one is the best fit for your system.
Welcome to my solar shed. The question I always get is, can this shed support these panels, the weight? And with 80 amps pumping into my batteries right now, I have no doubts. But let me show you some of the things I did while I was building it that can help support the weight so that you understand where the weight is going. This was going to be a little bit more detailed than our normal video. We're going to go into exactly how I mounted the panels and what brackets I used, what I used in the shed to support the panels, and you'll see some of the flaws that I have and some of the concerns I have about the future, and some of the things I did to hopefully prevent some of that. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know. It's hard to say. I live in Florida, and we've had, you have hurricanes, and pretty much one of these sheds gets hit by a hurricane, and I'm not sure there's anything that you can do to stop it. So let's dig in and get on to talking about the side panels here, how I've got them mounted. All right, let's talk about how these panels are mounted. So as you can see, I have 3 on each side, 2 on the back side. And what I've done here is I've taken the 2x6 that holds the shed, and I've attached vertically a ledge across the bottom of the 2x6 and screwed this into it to give it a really nice firm location for these panels to sit. And since they're sitting vertically, this supports all of the weight, and none of the weight actually sits on the shed. Now, they do have a slight tilt back towards the edge of the shed. As you can see, it's a little closer at the top than at the bottom. That is by design so that the sun, as it comes in for the evening, will start to hit up here as soon as possible. Because what's going to happen is, as it goes over solar noon, the sun's going to start moving up this panel to hit the top, and you're not going to get full effect until it gets there. This usually takes about, as it stands right now, about an hour after solar noon. And this set over here, as you can see now, the sun is gone off for this side as we've passed solar noon. So on both sides, this is exactly what I've done here. It's taken a 2x6, a 2x4, and placed these solar panels here on them vertically lining up. The brackets I used were standard T brackets. I like these aluminum ones. I do have down here at the very end some of the original black, probably get a better view from this side, there we go. Some of these original black brackets that I used up on top of the RV roof with the black panels I have up there. But the idea is the weight is supported on the ground, and that runs up to the top where I mounted this up as high as the highest hole as I could, and that is really literally 2 or 3 inches from the top to give it the maximum hold there. And then these screws go through and are supported on the back, or will be supported on the back, with a backing board of some kind that allows you to push out that pressure to the entire wall, as opposed to just the spot where the screw goes through this aluminum framing. As you can see in the inside of this, there are screws all the way down that support it there, that go to a nice aluminum frame that is up in there. But this allows these panels' weight to be supported by the actual foundation itself. In the back, I did not put in a 2x4, as I knew the back would have all day long full sunlight, as it didn't really need the extra angle that is provided, as you can see there on this side over here, the extra angle to get that sun. These in the back are the same thing, except they sit on the frame at the bottom, so that there's absolutely total weight support here, no problem there. And at the top, it has 2 brackets, so I got away with only using half of the brackets. These are aluminum brackets that screw in and are attached on the back. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll walk around to the inside and show you the back of these panels of how they're attached. As an example, this is the backing board that I'm using to spread out some of that pressure coming from those panel mounts. But this is basically the theory. The idea is to use some kind of backing board that these screw into to distribute that weight to a larger area in here and allow you to provide support from this main frame at the top, where you have those screws going across the top. What I may even do is make these boards a little bit bigger, where they go all the way up here to the top, so that I have the full backing of the wall, as opposed to just where the threads of these screws go through. And I just want to start off by showing you on those roof panels, you'll see here, right in this view right here is very well shown. You see the screws coming down right here. These are the roof panels that are screwed directly into the frame, the aluminum frame of the shed. And so if I come down a little bit further, I'll see there's another one here holding this panel. And then I come down even a little bit further, and we'll see another set of screws here holding this one. You can see it a little bit clearer from the outside, but I wanted to show you on the inside where it's supported. The top section of this will, and I have not attached them yet, but the top section will be in this area here along this ridge. And what I'm planning to do here is do the same thing I did with the wall, put a support piece of wood to distribute some of that weight and make sure that I capture this internal ridge line here where all the massive support is. But because my panels are mounted here at the bottom and here at the top, I'm going to try to get them to these frames to give it some additional support. Now you can see here when I hold this camera way up that I have 2 panels on this side, and then if I come around the back side of the shed, I have 2 panels over here. Now the original configuration, as we talked about, was 2 in series. I've since changed it to where these 4 are in series. Let's talk a little bit about the mounting of these. These are mounted very similar to the side panels, in that these screws go straight into that frame as I showed you just a moment ago. So I do it there, and then there's a second one here where it goes into that mounting frame, and then that's repeated on that panel there and the 2 panels on the other side. And it allows the rain to run down behind them. It allows the rain that hits them to run off the top, but it does not provide a lot of extra weight, as except up here at the top where that is focused on that area where that support is. I may even attach an additional support to the center of these top panels to distribute that weight a little bit better on the inside, but since I'm going to hit that main frame, I'm not sure how important that's going to be. All right, so you can see that the solar panel attachment here is pretty sound support down here. The roof is in pretty good shape, as I've used the support of the shed, and the shed is designed to support an additional 480 pounds, with the panels weighing about 43 to 47 pounds a piece. It looks like I'm in pretty good shape up there, considering I moved the weight onto those supports. The top attachments are really the only thing that I have any question about, and I would like to see if maybe I can add a third, or maybe a third and a fourth support across the top of that. Put a long running beam across the top, maybe something that attaches from side to side to give it a little bit more ability to withstand the high gusty winds. Like I said, it is quite common to be 30, 35 mile an hour gust around here, and 20 mile an hour winds day to day. Coming in off of the river, I see that almost nonstop. So it's the low winds like that, and the low level hurricanes of the category category 1s, I'm not too particularly worried about. When it starts getting into 3s and the 4s, I'm not sure that this shed under any circumstances would do that. I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. You've been fantastic. The feedback is awesome. I really appreciate it. Please take the time now. If you've got a question or some concern, write it down below. I'd love to hear from you. I love the feedback. It really makes doing these videos fun when we get to communicate back and forth. And I look forward to all the other videos, especially the solar shed series is wonderful. I have another series going on, the DIY solar setups and configuring a system and sizing your batteries and that kind of stuff. So both of those are really fun projects, and I'm enjoying myself. So I hope you feel the same. I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next video. And as that said, the next video in the series, if you're walking through the series, is right here, or the previous one to this, and it walks you through them, is right here. Just click on it. It'll take you right onto the next one. And if you want to see a list of all of the videos in a particular series, just go to my homepage. All of the videos are linked in categories so that you can get to them all. And below in the description is a link to those lists also. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you all. All right, welcome back to the channel. So today I got a special treat for you. We are going to, I got solar panels out here on the solar shed that you've all seen. And one of the things that I struggle with is there's a lot of humidity here in Florida along these solar panels over here and up here. So every morning these are covered with dew. And of course, I got a huge breeze coming in off the ocean here, and it picks up all the sand and attaches it to this, so they're all gritty and grainy. So what I'm going to do today is I've also got another recorder running on the laptop, and it is sitting in the shed recording the solar production from both the RV panels for a baseline and the solar shed panels for here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record both of them and run them in parallel and split screen this for you so you can watch what happens when we do this. Now first I need that bucket that's over there. So I'm going to walk back over there and get that bucket, because I can't wash the panels very well without the wash. So let me walk back around here, grab this bucket. Now, I'd like to hear your opinion on doing more of these type of videos where you're actually seeing how the sausage is made as opposed to just reviewing it afterwards. I've heard multiple people talk about it in different ways, and they all have different things to say about it. So I'm okay with either one. I kind of like doing a little bit of mix of both. Whenever it's appropriate, do one, and whenever it's appropriate, do the other. So we are looking at, and I'm going to mention the time a few times so I can sync up the two videos. It's 12:06, and I'm just going to start. I'm going to fill this bucket with water before I get started. I kind of suspect that as soon as I hit these panels with water, there's going to be a bit of a surge in the production, and then what we'll have to do is we'll have to wash them, and then afterwards let them heat back up and see how they're producing. I'm not going to go greatly into all the stats afterwards, but I'll let you make some of your own conclusions there. But it should be pretty instrumental and pretty fun to see the results. All right, so here we go. I'm going to rinse these off first of all. Just get them all good and wet. Now, then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to wipe off some of this. It seems to stick pretty good. I mean, it's almost like pasted on. So you have to give it a little bit of a rub, which is what I'm doing here. Don't necessarily need soap or anything or any real abrasives, but you need enough to knock loose all the sand. And then what I usually do is follow that up with immediately come behind and just squeegee it off. Now, sometimes I use a ladder to get the angle on this right, but I think I can do it without it. Let's see, squeegee is not really working that well today, is it? All right, so we may have to go to a different method. Squeegee's not working great today, so we'll wash it, then we'll do another rinse just to get all the dirt off, and we'll leave it to dry. All right, then we'll rinse this one, and we're going to wash all the dirt off. Knock it all loose anyway. Hopefully get it all up there. And rinse it off. Now, these are just the top two panels, so those 4 panels, these are 4 in series. So since they're 4 in series, you won't see a great increase yet until I do the other side, which I'll do after this. I'll do the same thing over here. See if I can knock off all these loose, all this dirt that's attached to each of the panels. And then I'll rinse them off. There we go. And I'm going to move the hoses and the buckets. We'll do this again from the other side. Had a lot of fun with the solar shed. I like the RV and the traveling and all of that goes on, but it's good to have a fixed spot. This place is nice enough to allow me to put up a shed, keep a little bit more of a permanent location here between trips. We do a lot of coffee shows and that kind of stuff, so you'll see probably seen some videos on my coffee trays too. I should do the top first, shouldn't I? We'll do the top. I hope you guys can still see me over there. You know what, I should probably move that camera. Help me do that while I'm thinking about it before I do all this and come to find out you didn't get to see anything except me talking from behind the shed. All right, here we go. Put this over here. Turn that up just a little bit so you can see it. And I'll zoom in a little bit too. There we go. All right. So the idea here is same as the other side. Get rid of us. Knock loose all that grime that just gets attached. The wind just carries it in. And it's like in your car when you do every morning, you end up with this film on there. Now there you have windshield wipers. You can knock it all off pretty easily. Solar panels, fortunately, these are not on top of my RV. I'm afraid to know what those up there look like. This will give me an idea if it's even worth going up to take a look at them.
And then we're going to rinse these off. And this will complete that series of those 4 panels, the primary 4 panels off the top of the roof. I can get a little bit more hose here. There we go. Get all this rinsed off here. All right. Then we go to the side ones here. Let's do a good quick rinse. These are not real bad today. A lot of the times in the January and February months, it was really bad out here. I mean, everything was getting attached quite consistently. It was very difficult to keep them clean, but I never actually tracked how it's such a, as you can see, it's such a quick process from doing it from the shed like this. It's not on a roof anywhere, that it was easy enough for me to just do it like this every couple of days or once a week or whatever I was in the mood. Now, the ones in the back are a little bit more different. I don't have a hose back there, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wash them and then throw the bucket off on them and see if that's how I normally do it for these, and it seems to make them nice and clean. They don't seem to attract as much being on this backside. I don't know. I say that they're really dirty today, though. Maybe even dirtier than the other panels. Occasionally, you get birds come by, bird bomb you. Being here on the beach, it does happen more frequently than. There we go. Everything's clean now. So now I'll let the recording run another 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll see if we can get us a pose. See if we can get some stats for how this is going to work. And I'll just pull up the stats at this point in the recording. We can take a look at it. I'm going to walk one more time all the way around here just to make sure it looks like I've got everything clean. The majority of these panels look pretty darn good. I don't see any of that dirt, that overnight dirt that you get when you're after morning dews every day. This looks pretty good. Now we've got to wait for them to warm back up, a little bit of that water to evaporate, and that will put everything back to normal. All right. Looks like we're still recording in the solar generation. I did turn on, if you're wondering why my air conditioners are registering in that solar generation, because I did just record the overall statistics page, and I'll point to a few of those here as I'm editing this. But I did go to those and do a few of that type of stuff for the purpose of being able to compare one thing to another. I did turn the air conditioners on full blast to see if I could get enough power to make sure I didn't shut off in the middle of this process. Lately, there's been so much power generation with this new thing that I'm actually, with this new shed, that I've actually got more power than I can use already for this time of the year, which is crazy. I'm hoping that it's enough for January and December. But this is what it's all about right here. Toying and playing with these things. If there's something you want to see, please let me know in the chat down there. Just say hi. It all helps out a lot. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll continue to make videos here. I know I released another one. I'll link it right here this morning for some information about how voltage works and how I perceive it and what's got me through the years and my understanding of it. It isn't technically, all of it is probably not technically accurate as far as the nitty-gritty, but what it does is it gives you an overview of how to do things. And so now we'll let this warm up. You've got the stats here on the screen doing it, and I'll probably cut off the audio and just go back to the basic stats. But anyway,
Welcome to the channel. If you're a new subscriber, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We've been growing twofold the last couple of days, and I hope to get some more here very soon. Out on the, if you're not familiar with DIYSolarForums.com, I'm also Matt Man out there. I post a lot of my content out there and chat with those guys out there, and that's a great place to meet people. It's a great place to get solar information, to ask questions and get data. If you can't get it here, then you can always get it there. Anyway, let's get on with the stats, and I'll appreciate you being here, and thanks a lot for coming and joining the channel. All right, I'm back inside now, and I wanted to pull up the stats here and just kind of go through a few of them with you, and I hope I have the screen defined well enough for you to see everything. As you can see here, it was 12:06 when I announced that I was going to do it, and then this has got to be where the water hit. We started our washing, and you immediately see we have gone from very quickly from 960 into over the 1,000 range. As I continue to wash here, we spiked out at 1,060 or so. So there would have been a small slope incline here because we're coming up on solar day, but in a period of 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes, 10 minutes, it would not have been 100 watts. So it does look like it was close to an estimate, 8 to 10% increase, and that is totally a guess. Now that's peak, and you can see here that after I finish, and this is probably me splashing the back right here, or splashing those top ones. You never know also with the Victron equipment, sometimes it does a bounce thing, and you can easily see the ups and downs. So it doesn't look like it's recorded a whole lot of those this time, which is nice. But even here, we're at 1,030, 1,040, and it's still on its way up for the day. So I would say that the 1,028 to this 957 is probably more accurate of what the change was. And if I just bring in a calculator, 1,000, let's see what it is. It was 1,000. Let's do that math again. 1,028. Yeah, there's 1,028, which is kind of the low point here after it simmers back down. And here is the low 959. So 959, 1,028 minus 959 equals 69 divided by 1,028. So it was basically 6.7% increase. So it depends on how many panels you have, really, if this is going to be worth it. For me, I'm on the ground. It's an extra 100 watts or, 80 watts. It's pretty simple if I'm in the mood. If I allowed them to continue, and I can tell you those panels were not that dirty today. So my suspicion is normally it would be a much bigger deal for me. It has not been very dewy in the morning lately, as of late. It's been in the, the low 70s instead of the low 50s. Or the high 50s, which causes that dew point to hit every single night. It's soaking, drenching wet out there, and all that sand and dirt just gets attached. So I would say that the conclusion that I'm going to have here is that it does help, that it's approximately 6 to 7% with the on average of for my solar shed. Would that be more if those panels were on the roof and the sun was directly on them? Would there be more of a case? Was all of that from the panels just on the top of the shed, or did all the ones on the side have some impact also? I didn't really think about that before I did it, so I might have to run another test at some point in the future and find out. But it is safe to say there was some kind of increase. It was apparent and obvious here in the solar shed. You've got all the other stats that are out there. And I'm just doing this quick review here, and I'm placing it at the end because I got back in and I wanted to look at this before I went through and watched all the stats move around. Anyway, I appreciate your time. Following this conclusion, I will place I'll let the video continue to run until I stop recording, so you're welcome to watch it and see what's going on there. For the most part, though, that was it, and I appreciate you. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. All right, today we got a little bit of a special video. I got a FLIR infrared camera from FLIR One Edge, infrared camera in, based on some online reviews and stuff. This seemed to be the best option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my iPhone and I'm going to record the screen on it and place it here on the, right here over top of Snoopy, on the screen while I set it up. Only thing I have done is install the app. I didn't even launch the app. So you're going to see everything from the beginning to the end. And if I have problems, you're going to see those also. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to start, I'm going to start my phone app right now so that I can do the countdown, and that way I can synchronize things up and my voice will align with the video from my phone. And it is counting down, and it started recording. Okay, so here's what the directions say to do. They say to install the app, which I have done, and then it says to attach the app to the camera in the back of your phone, which I'm not sure exactly. Oh, I see. All right, so we'll do that. We'll attach that back here. I'm assuming this is what they mean. Wow, that's good and tight, though. I wouldn't have expected it to be that tight, but it is a good, I mean, a really good fit. That's really nice. And then you have to attach in the back of the mobile device, pulling out the arm and blah, 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 blah. Turn on the FLIR One camera, hold the on-off button. Now, I did charge this before we started so that it wouldn't be dead on us when we got to this point, but I did not turn it on yet either. So I'm going to push and hold, and it said it will come on, and then it'll take about until the LED starts flashing, loading. The camera will boot up, and it will take a series of about 20 seconds for it to start. So you can see it actually scrolling through the loading cycle here, and that probably right there means that it is loaded. All right, so now with the phone app, as you can see, I've just got it on the basic screen here. I am going to go into the FLIR One and start the FLIR One app with the mobile device. App will guide you through setting it up. All right, so let's see what we got here. Yeah. I understand. I don't need a cell speech, I need an installation. All right, so this is the one that we have. It says the FLIR One Edge or the FLIR One. This does say that I have the Edge, so I am going to pick that one. And this will allow Bluetooth and allow the device to find it on the local network. It says it'll take about 15 seconds, and it basically immediately connect it right away. See if I can get that to focus for you. And, oh, I guess you got a copy of the screen on the screen anyway. It says it's got a FLIR One Edge. I'm going to hit connect, and it's going to allow me to join it on the network, which is good. Looks like everything is going the way it should be going at this point. Now, my understanding of one of the biggest reasons I bought this one is because it wasn't only a Bluetooth connection, it actually connected through Wi-Fi, allowing me to have some high bandwidth. Wow, and we are up and running just like that. All right, so we got an update, as you can see, from the firmware is available. I'm going to go ahead and do the update. We're going to see how this process goes. And as you can see, it's downloading pretty quick. I am on a Starlink, so I've got pretty good bandwidth here, about 270, 300 megabytes down. Pretty consistent. And it says it's going to take a few minutes for it to do the update, so we will wait for it. But it looked like, with the upgrade on the screen and in the background of the upgrade, it looked like it was already up and running, and I could already see some infrared pieces there. And if that's the case, that would have been a truly incredibly easy installation. And The only thing that's taking longer here is the update is taking longer than the actual installation itself. The app downloaded just like a standard iPhone app. I clicked on it, said yes, authorize it, and it went boom, downloaded it, was there on my desktop. I didn't launch it or anything at that point. So I particularly like the idea that it doesn't ask me to sign in with all kinds of crap, things they don't really have any business having or knowing. Looking at the directions, and that is literally the end of the directions, as you can see here. It basically says to install that, and then it will connect. Turn on the Floor One's camera, and press and hold the on-off button until the LED turns off, or to turn off the camera. So it's basically guided me through as step 5 says, and then step 6 is how to turn it off. So pretty done. Okay, there we go. Finished. Says it wants to restart my camera before we go forward, so I'm going to say okay. And here it is again saying the device was found. I'm going to say connect. Ask me if I want to join. I'm going to say join, which is the Wi-Fi connection. And it's going to say it's unable to join, which is hopefully not a problem. Now my guess is it just doesn't register that I've been disconnected yet, and that once it times out and comes back online, everything will be okay. Give it a little bit longer here. All right, connection lost, and then we are going to retry. And so it looks like after it did the upgrade, I'm not sure it actually restarted. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just close the app, and then I'm going to relaunch the app. And let's just see what it does here. It started up the first time pretty well. It says it found it. We'll connect. We'll say join. And voila, we are up and running. That was exactly it. All right, so we have a Wi-Fi connection. I'm going to point this at the window. And as you can see, I pointed up there at the lights. Those are LED lights. There's very little power in those. That's amazing. I was pointed at the roof of the RV. As you can see, I've got some hot spots up there. That's interesting. And the back window. And you can see I've got some spots there. So this gives me some things, some pretty easy installation. And I think it is time to say that the installation is successful. I'm going to point this right back at the camera. We will take this outside to the solar system and hook it all back up and start over again. And I'll show you all the wires and stuff within the solar system, and we can work on it and see what's going on with my system. I've never actually investigated it this way. The only thing I've done is the point guns, where you point the gun and pull the trigger and it gives you the temperature. I don't suspect we'll have any problems though. So here we go. We'll see you in just a second. All right, here we are again. I'm going to start the screen again. 3, 2, 1, and there we go. We should have both of them up and running. This is the bay on my RV. The first thing I want to do is I want to look at this battery. You can look over here at the BMS, and you can see that it's warm, but the cables running to and from the battery, you can see them there very clearly. They're nice and cool. I'm going to point down at this one here. This is the main battery coming off of it, and this is the T-fuse here. It's actually cool. The switch is cold, and I'm going to run up all the way, follow these wires up into this. I'm going to see what that is there that's hot.
over here in this corner. Let's see. Oh, it's a power supply. A little DC power supply that runs to one of the computers. All right, this is the charge controller from the Victron 15035. You can see it clearly. It's the warmest thing in the over here. I'm going to pull it down below and take a look at the wires leading into it. That's the most important thing. I trust that they'll take care of the inside. I just need to make sure that the outside's right. And here's where all the wires connect. If I can get around that wire there. There we go. None of them are showing any significant heat. The PV's coming in. I do have 40 degrees over there on the far side of it. But nothing, it's all on the Victron, the device itself. I'm going to reach my hand up there and see if I can feel how, oh yeah, you can definitely feel how warm that is. I mean, I'm 37, so if that puts it at, I'm not familiar with Celsius, and I haven't attempted to change this yet. I wonder if I can. Settings, units, and Fahrenheit. And we're going to go back. And there we go. Now we'll take a look at this in 105 degrees. Looks like that's about the max there. The wires themselves are all cold. The bus bars, can't even find the bus bar on here. It is so cold. There it is. It's 90 degrees. The hot bus bar down here at the bottom, the negative, is 90 also. I'm going to run over here to the shunt. And the shunt is also sitting at 90. I go down a little bit. You'll see I do have a hot device there running at 100 degrees. Believe it or not, that connects to the Raspberry Pi that's running the Venice system for the Smart Shunt. I have a secondary bus bar after here, and there is nothing in that one that is hot whatsoever. And I'm going to go up here a little bit. I've got this device here, which is just an amp meter. It is running at 96 degrees. It is a 12 volt, or the 48 volt leading to my 12 volt step downs on the other side. We'll get to those. I do have a fuse here. This was originally my hot spot. It was right about here. This heats up. This is where my Victron gets hot when my Victron sensor is connected, and the highest I've ever seen it is at 112 or 119. When I have a whole bunch of amperage running through it, I'll do that. I've got a fan up here that is running right now. My guess is it's because that right there, it's 90 degrees in here, which if I flip over here to the inverter, that is why it's over. When it gets over 92 degrees, this turns on. So that is why we were running over here. Makes sense. I'm going to pull back and take a look at the inverter from a little bit of a distance. This is a 6000 XP, as you can see. Really, the only thing that's warm in there is the actual heat coming in and out. This is the opposite side on the DC side after I've stepped down my 48 volts to 12 volts. It's another Victron energy device for the Orion TR481230 amps. You can see they run at about 100 degrees. And I've got a second one down here, and it looks like it runs a little cooler. And from what I originally saw, this one doesn't get quite the pull that that one gets. And there was no reason to run two of them at the time that I did it, except when I'm running the big devices for leveling and that kind of stuff. I just leave them both on because the idle consumption on those things is almost non-existent. This is my 12 volt wiring. It is interesting. I did see one wire in there that looks a little warm. I want to know what that is. That one right there, running at 90 degrees. It's a big wire. It goes somewhere. I'm going to have to figure out what that actually is. Not quite sure. Oh, I know what that is. That's the main line that runs to the RV for all the internal 12 volt DC stuff. Right now it's claiming it's pulling over 100 amps or 100 watts. through that line, and that's probably why it's there. I'll probably have to crank that up and make sure I don't really have a problem there. But 90 degrees, if I just look over at the basic compartment here, this is a Shelly device that controls the fans, turning them on and off, which you can see I've got a couple of fans over here and the ones that I had over there. So this, we're going to point it at this Shelly device. You can see it is running in the close to 100 degrees, also 103, 105. They seem to run about the same temperature as the Victron, right at 100 degrees. I'm pretty sure that's just a European standard of some kind. That's the right temperature for it. I don't really have anything else over here that could be of any trouble whatsoever. I am going to see if I can move this cover off of this battery and look underneath at all these cells. As you can see, they're all running nice and cool down here. I do have one hot, so that's my hand. I don't have a single thing in here that's hot. This is fantastic news. I do want to do a test here in the next day or two where I'm going to come out here and crank this puppy up to where it is full injection of over 100 amps. I might even use grid power to do it, or I might just turn everything in the sun on tonight after the sun goes down and see if I can get it to pull that much. But the good news is, it looks like, I'll take you guys, it looks like we are pretty much all good. I don't see anything in here that's causing any problems whatsoever. That's what I suspected. That's what the meter told me. But this is a fantastic little device. I didn't go with the Pro. The Pro version of it is an extra $200, so from $390 to $299 to $499. I had a hard time swallowing that. The resolution is a little bit higher, but as you can see, the resolution on this, I can still see what all the devices are. I can see exactly where the cables are, and I can see where the heat is, and if there's a problem, it's going to stand out, so it shouldn't be a problem to locate it, get in there and get it fixed. That's what's important. It's not that I'm able to see all the nitty-gritty detail, because I'm not using this professionally as a job for me. I'm using it more for a safety feature. So I am going to call it quits today. I appreciate everyone. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not, smash that button right now. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. And you guys have a good day. And thanks for all the suggestions that got this device to me. I appreciate it.
It's been well over a year since I walked into that field that day and found my RV with my puppies and my wife and the air conditioners and everything running. And as I'm walking up to the front doorstep, I'm so relieved. I'm thinking, oh, I'm home. I finally get to eat. I'm going to feel great. And boom, the power goes off. I practically dropped to my knees in panic. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all the food in my food trucks. My dogs aren't going to be able to sleep here. My wife is going to be angry at me. And I had to find a solution. It caused me to go into panic mode where I started shaking and I started wondering, how can I solve this problem so that I don't have this fear ever again? I don't want to feel that panic of not knowing how I'm going to keep the power on ever again. Now, today, I can go anywhere I want, power free, and run everything. The solar charge controller that I use to run this shed is in the RV that's sitting behind me, and it allows me to hook up portable panels and control everything. Let me show you how I hooked it up. Let me show you how we can be sure that this never happens to you. Now, this is the solar shed. So in the solar shed is where you'll find my combiner box. I conveniently left open. Now, my combiner box here brings in all of the solar wires from each of the solar panel series that are on top of the roof. It brings them all in. And it allows me to combine all this power and from this shed and bring it around all the way around to the MC4 connectors at the bottom that run into this combiner box. Now, this combiner box doesn't do a whole lot except give me some fuses to make sure that I don't burn some stuff up. And then from there, it goes through a breaker and turns that power around, comes right back out, and goes out to the RV. So I'm going to walk you around here and show you. On the side of the shed, I use these membranes to allow the wires to exit the side of the shed. These are basically just screwed in. There's a hole in the inside, probably about 3/4 of an inch round right here. I sealed these on all three, the top and the left and the right side, leaving the bottom unsealed. This allows moisture to drain, humidity to escape. These membranes that are on these wires here, you basically push the wires through and then you tighten these down and it squeezes a rubber O-ring around them and makes a good watertight connection. I used the same connector down here to connect the electrical power. I just ran a wall plug in there and then I can unplug this. So this allows me with these MC4 connectors here, when I travel, I can just disconnect this and I can fold the shed up, close the doors, drive away, and not worry about it. Now, I also use these panels, these parts here, they have the solar wire on them. So I can either put them in the RV and take them with me if I have intentions for portable power while I'm out, or if I don't need additional wires, I can leave them here. And if I leave them here, then I can just disconnect them over here in the first bay with these MC4 connectors. This allows me to just disconnect and leaves this set of wires here for me to use to run the next solar panels when I get out on the field. So I can put a couple panels like right here along the side of the RV and lean them up against the wall, plug them in, and have that power. These wires just run right straight up into the RV bay, and they run down, and they connect right here and go into this switch. This PV switch allows me to quickly turn off or extinguish the connection. Using a PV switch is really important as it allows you to extinguish the high DC amperage and voltage that could be running through these lines. You don't want to just use a normal switch. You can see here I have the main PV switch for the RV panels. That's 3,700 watts that runs through two strings of 5 panels on each one of these. In turn, these come out, go into this piece of plywood, disappear behind here where the inverter is. You can also see my Life Power 4 EG4 batteries are here, and they also run behind this wall. So let me walk you around to the inside where the inverter is. Now, this is the guts of the system and where the charge controller will be found. Now keep in mind, I have 2 charge controllers. The first one is in my 6000 XP. Now, in the 6000 XP, if I take this cover off, you can see I have those 2 lines that come in here. And that can power that 3,700 watts that's on the roof. But what we're interested in is the smart controller. The Victron smart controller, which is there. Let's see if I can get some light in here. Oh, that's good. And you can see there that it's kind of buried in the back. I did put the box here so we could go over it, but it's basically a Victron MPPT charge controller, 150 volts input and 35 amps output. Now, that said, you can see here that it it is going to, it operates at a pretty high efficiency. And you can see the connections to it down here, where we have the PV wire coming in and the electrical going out. Now, that runs through this switch here and out to the bus bars. And those bus bars then in turn run back to the bus bar that connects to the battery past the fuse. And down here, it also goes on the negative side, it goes through the shunt into the bus bar. We've also got, in addition to the Life Power 4 batteries, we've got a DIY battery that's 304 amp hours here that it connects to. So this is what I'm attempting to charge or get additional charging power. The 3,700 watts that comes in from the typical solar that's on the roof is fantastic, don't get me wrong. And 9 times out of 10, it's more than enough to completely operate the entire thing. And I have gone places where I didn't have this extra power. But I can tell you, if you go to a nice, hot, humid place and you need a little extra power so you can run an air conditioner. Now, keep in mind, I don't fudge when I have my air conditioner. I run my air conditioner at night at 61 degrees nonstop, and during the day it stays cool for the dogs. So there is no fudging around, doing certain things or anything like that. So this Victron is a portable station that comes with me when I am doing the fairs and stuff like that. So this allows me to bring the charge controller with me. It's permanently mounted in the RV, as you can see, and it allows for very easily for me to just connect other panels in that area and replace the input that comes from this solar shed. Now, granted, this solar shed has 2,000 watts of power on it, but part of these panels are mounted sideways, so I'm never going to see that. The most I've ever seen come in from it is about 1,400 watts or 1.4 kilowatts of power at a time. But that said, it can provide up to 7 kilowatt hours a day, and I've seen it go a little bit higher than that. We're not even in full summer yet. That extra 7 kilowatt power is enough to make my ability to run this fifth wheel full time without ever worrying about running out of power, and not have to worry about where I'm going to get the power from. I can be in the middle of a field at a fair, or I can be in the backyard and have grid 5 feet away. Here, for example, I have grid 5 feet away, but I don't want to pay for electricity. I've got a pedestal right there. And the only thing I've got hooked up to it is a dryer. The only thing I've got hooked up is a dryer, and that's because I don't have an inverter big enough to power that dryer yet. But I'll get there, and you'll see it happen. This camera is put out by the Thermal Master Technology Company. As you can see, it comes in a nice little box. Okay, let's just skip all this for now. We'll come back to all the setup and the configuration and open unboxing later. Let's get on with the good stuff, and let's find out what this thing can do. Here we are at the RV, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this out of the box, plug it right in, and start scanning. So as you can see, this thing is just tiny. It basically is just a little tiny device that plugs into the bottom of the phone. It should launch the app, which it did. And I'm just going to tell it to go to the camera. And hopefully it's remembered my preferences from before. And it did. It put it on the color schemes for us. It looks like there is a magnification down here at the bottom also. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to see if I can change this real quick. It's pretty cool. Lots of settings to make this thing really useful. It's got a record functionality, and so I'm able to switch pretty easily to Fahrenheit. If that takes care of all of it, that would be kind of nice. I also do appreciate the fact that in the app does not require me to open up an account and fill out a whole bunch of
garbage, which is really nice. Let's start by looking at some of the information here on the screen. You can see here this little device is running at 103 degrees, which is nice that it just pulls out the high zone, so I don't have to go find it with the arrow to point there. I move up to the shunt, and you can see here that the shunt is running nice and cold. The camera, this is one thing for a lot of you viewers to watch, is to remember, you're not using the standard camera lens that's up here. You're using the infrared camera lens that's down like I am here. You could be pointing at exactly the wrong item. That is something that just kind of caught me off guard. You're so used to using your phone that way that you see the wrong item. So I'm going to point it at this negative bus bar here, and as you can see, you can clearly make out that that is the bus bar here too. And you can see this is clearly the bus bar, and that it's not very hard to tell. A lot of infrared cameras, the quality of the image is so poor that you can't tell what you're looking at when the temperatures are not really contrasty. So I'm going to move up to the positive bus bar and expect to see a little bit more of a contrast in temperature. And I'm right. So you can see here that the bus bar itself is nice and cold, but this lead wire coming in right up in here is a much hotter. It's running at, according to this, it's running at 101. This side over here is running a lot higher. All right, here we are at the combiner box. And this should be very interesting because this is where we have those three lines coming in from the solar panels we just looked at. And they all come in and connect here. And so as you can see here, my finger's pointing at the first one and the second one and the third one. There is absolutely no temperature change here. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about this camera that's really nice is I do have some color schemes I can pick that are a little bit different, where the hot spots are red writing, and this basically shows me a picture with the hot spots red, which is really nice. You can also go to the iron hot lines, which shows, and I'm thinking this one's just a lot more sensitive, so it's very nice that this is lighting these items up. This is a much better view for this, where the temperature difference is much smaller than the other one. As you can see, all of these items here, this one line coming in right here is really the one that's lit this board up. Let's see if we can identify which one it is. It's the second line here off of this fuse, absolutely, which runs down and out and to the roof. So obviously the roof is the one that's lighting up the most. Let's see what the temperature is on that wire and make sure that we're in some tolerance here and not really having a problem. The color scheme on this one, it's, that's 95 degrees. So that is fantastic that you can see from the quality of this camera, change the color schemes like that and get some real detail of, is there anything here that's overly hot? And even the hottest item on the screen here is only 100 degrees, and it is a good 90 degrees outside. So none of that is really a surprise, and it looks like we have a pretty successful review of this and nothing problematic here. So we will move on to the next.
All right, so now we're going to take a look at all the different panels here. The important thing here, as I back up, I'm going to try to take a look at what the actual panel's temperature themselves are. It's easy to locate hot spots like this. Like you can see here, we have a very clear hot spot on this panel. One of those cells looks like it is really burning out, and it is this one here. It's very easy for me to clearly identify it and to recognize that there's something going on with that panel and know that there might be a problem sometime in the future. This is very, very helpful if you were to have these panels up on a roof or something like that, I'm going to move over to these ones on this side over here. And as you can see over here, these panels are much cooler and they're not near as hot as those. All right, so as we continue here, you can see these panels are basically much better temperature gauged and not really have a bunch of hot spots on them. The hottest spot is that 2x4 running across the bottom that's absorbing that heat and doesn't have a real good way of dissipating it. I am going to shift and go to the ones up here on the top of the shed, and I've got a hot spot up there on that one too. See if I can locate where it is, and come back to this one over here. So as you can see, this is very useful in identifying if you're going to have some problems with wires or cables or anything. I come down here to this MC4 connector. As you can see, that one's nice and cool. Interestingly enough, the second one in the background there looks a little hot though. We're going to pull that out and take a look at it. And as you can see, that probably needs to be looked at. That's running really hot for a MC4 connector. It should look more like this one here, which would imply there's something going on in there, or could imply there's something going on in there. I'm going to take it over to this one here. As you can see, that MC4 connector looks quite good. And if I take this and pan it around to these panels over here, I'm seeing some reflections and stuff, but nothing that shows any real problems there. And this is the primary one that would concern me, that running at 140 degrees, and that's something that I'll need to take a look at.
I know it's very difficult for you to hear me, but I wanted to show you the automotive way this thing works and give you an overview of our engine as it's warming up. So as you can see, as the block is starting to heat up here, where the actual heat is now, and you can see that is really starting to get nice and warm as the motor runs. Although you can also tell here from the coolant lines that it is not warm yet. As you can see here, the engine is definitely starting to get warm. That section is getting up into the 200 range, 195, 196, starting to get nice and warm. See if I can get a view down there of some of the exhaust. Yeah, that's not quite got warm enough yet. And the fan over here, running that temperature there. And as you can see, as this thing starts to warm up, we'll start to get some coloration on the top. I am going to change the coloration a little bit again. See if we can get something in. Oh, that's much better. So as you can see, the ability to change the coloration scheme is super important on this thing. You can easily see contrast of all the different temperatures with this view, whereas the other one, I needed that really close range sensitivity. And here, I need a lot more flexibility and a lot bigger range. Here you can see the whole motor outline. I'm going to go through a few more of these. There's a jungle view. There's a Aurora view, which is very interesting, as you can see all the different pieces and parts on that one. There is the city view, and there is the low light view. I'm assuming that this one's best for night vision. This is the gold view, the lava view, and the medical view. Now, I kind of like the gold view. It seems to me that the hotter it is, the more red we have. It does make it kind of hard to see all the details you need to. And in the medical view, I'm assuming this is based on people's color. Stick my hand down here and see if I can get a, yeah, you can see my contrast to the temperature of my hand is not that good. So this is, as this motor is starting to heat up, you can see the top starting to change colors. I'm going to go back to some of these other views over here. some of these camera views are extremely important. And if you were a mechanic, you might want to look at things like the battery here and actually determine if you have battery connection problems or what other issues you do have. As you can see, it's very versatile, allows for multiple configurations, and it's extremely useful to be able to change these color schemes around and get different ones that allow you to see the details that you're looking for in each image. And I'm sure that as you went through this system, you would find uses for practically all of them, depending on what industry you were in. As you can see here, the black and white hot, where the black is hot and the white is cold. That is very cool. I still prefer the iron, I think, but I am very traditional in that way. Anyway, this was my diesel truck warming up. So quickly, we want to take a look at some other devices other than solar, just to kind of give you the versatility of this device. This is a mini split attached to the back of my RV. One of the many devices that the solar is running here. You can see the top is the hottest piece here. And the funny thing is I go over here to the side where the electrical connections are, and you can see the electrical wire that's coming in is the coolest one. The black wire running to the inside unit is the hottest one. It's kind of funny because it's the black insulation that's absorbing the heat, not the actual unit. Now there is some warmth underneath this panel here. This panel here is basically, oops, I'm in the camera's way here. This panel here is basically has the inlets and the outlet lines going to the unit inside of it. That's why it's having some heat dissipation going on. You can see the guardrail is absorbing a lot of heat. It's metal, it's exposed to. And then you can see the air conditioner itself running in there and pulling that heat off of those coils. Nothing of significance there. So everything's good here, so we will move on. All right, let's go through a few of the good items and the bad items. So the camera has a lot more good points than it does bad points. I'm gonna go through them kind of quickly here. I like the fact that it's very small. It fits on a keychain, can travel with very easily. You can put it in your pocket. It's got a nice, good protective case to hold onto it. I also really like the fact that it doesn't have a battery. The more I thought about this one, the more important this really becomes, as that is a really good feature of this camera. I like the images where you're allowed to see the detail around the edges. It's very important when you look at something not only to see that it's hot, but to be able to recognize exactly what it is. And when you get into the details on this one, or you have the ability to see the different color schemes, that's when you really get into being able to identify the items around it and being able to find a color scheme that works for you. I also like the fact that when I plug it in, it launches. I don't have to go find the app. I don't have to go set things up again. I don't have to do any of that other stuff. So I like the fact that it does that. And then it comes with an extension cord, and actually have it disconnected from the camera and have it a foot or two away where you can move it around. Some of the bad things. I did not like the fact that it was only available for Android. It didn't affect me because I had an Android and I was using it on an Android. So the default app color scheme, it stinks. The app should come in a typical configuration, and it didn't. I had to go in and play with the different color schemes to figure out what would work, what was traditional, what wasn't. It came with this black and white thing. You'll see in the imaging scan, in the documents, is too small. When you go to scan that, you have to be very, very careful to get exactly the right distance. It would have made it very easy to get to the installation. The quick start guide got a lot of details in it, and the problem is the quick start guide isn't a quick start guide. If you look at a lot of the other quick start guides, it's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, you're done. Other than that, really those are all nitpick negatives. The positives on this thing way outweigh it. That small key size change, the lack of a battery, the good image details, the ability to change the color schemes, launching when you first plug it in, the ease of taking this on the road and doing inspections and doing solar panel inspections and system inspections for other people, for workers, for air conditioner crews, for auto mechanics and that kind of stuff. It just, those are so valuable
that I would give this an A+. As very obvious which one it is from the picture it's on the front, and I've seen the picture all over the place. So I use them specifically for the solar industry. And so we're going to open this up today and kind of get in here and see what the contents are and see what we've got. I'll walk you through all of that, and then we're going to get out and we're going to actually use this puppy and see if we can take a look at our solar system and find some issues and problems. So first, we're going to open the box here, and it is, I got a little package over here with, looks like just a power cord. It's a USB-C to USB-C. And second, we have a couple of things in here. Looks like a manual. Oh, wow. Nice. Nice, big manual. This is actually very impressive, because usually you have to go online to see these things and to get any kind of documentation. So that's really good. Then the second item we have here is basically just the warranty user card and a little bit of a clip. Looks like a belt loop clip for something. Oh wow, this is kind of nice. It's like a little case, and holy cow, that thing is small. I mean, look at the size of that. It is just tiny. When they say it is the world's smallest, they actually mean it. I am going to pull a penny out of my pocket and set it next to it so you can get an idea how big it is. I mean, we're talking about a thermal camera that is the size of 2 cents laying next to each other. This is very tiny, and it comes in a nice hard case, felt-lined carrying case, and I'm going to assume that this is so that you can connect it to your keychain and just take it with you wherever you go. One of the things that I did read on the specs was that it does not have a battery in it, which is really nice, because that means instead of you having to worry about charging it up, you can put this on your keychain, you can carry it with you, and when you get to where you need to do the to do an inspection, a review, check out a system or whatnot, you can just pop this case open, plug it right into your phone, and at that point, you can see this in comparison to a phone. At that point, you just plug it into your phone, and it would launch the app, which we're going to do here in a minute, and you don't have to worry about the battery being dead, which is really nice, because in other thermal cameras that I have, usually what I have to do is make sure that I get it charged up first if I'm going to go look at something or something like that. So contents are very simple. Cable, manual, warranty card, device, carrying case with rack. That's basically all there really is to the unwrapping here. So I say let's get on with the real fun, and let's get it connected to a phone and get in and see if we can use it and get some good thermal images. All right, here we go. We are going to install the app. So we go into the Google Play Store and we click on the Temp Master app. I just did a search for Temp Master P2. We click on it and hit install, and it says it's pending and does its regular installation stuff. As you can see, it's got a 58 meg download, 75% done, and 79, 98, 100%. There we go. All right, so hopefully it'll finish installing here now that it's downloaded. All right, now it's switched over to installing. All right, now that it's installed, let's click the open button, and it's asking me to plug in the device. So I'm going to take the device and plug it in, and it says Temp Master handle will open the camera, always allow it to open the camera when it's opened. Click OK. There we go. All right, so you basically have in this option here to go through and pick the different, hot is white, black is cold, so you can do it that way, or you can go in and pick the iron red, which is one of your normal ones where you can see the hot devices that direction as I point to the window here, the window shade. You can see there's definitely some heat there. That seems to be about as simple as it is. They've got a rainbow one here, which looks like it's blue and red and yellow, which is kind of your typical one. I'm going to leave it there. And then I'm going to shut the app down, close everything, disconnect. And what I'm interested in is if I was in the field and I came in and basically just plug this in, would it launch the app for me? And that is what I was hoping it would do. It launched the app as soon as I plugged it in. I can now just click the camera button, and there we have it. We are back in action and basically able to do it. So that's the installation. It's pretty simple. You can scan the code here on the page and do the installation, or you can go to the App Store and download the app, the TempMaster app, for the device that you need. And then once it's installed, it's simply take the item out of the case that comes with it and plug it in, and voila, you are all done. So let's get on to the fun part and go do some testing of things. In short, this is a great little device. The lack of a battery makes it wonderful for on the road, in the field use, and I think it'll serve me well for many years. Hope you enjoyed the video. Follow me along with the next video on hooking up your panels for the best peak performance. Learn how to hook them up in parallel or serial. Click now